boy named Fabry is sitting on the porch of his stilt house, fishing off the edge with a piece of string. Under the floorboards, something grabs the line with its teeth and pulls. Fabry falls through the gap. What's waiting below is a Komodo dragon, and it doesn't let go of his hand until his family reaches him. He lived. His hand didn't. He's in first grade now, in a village where dragons still walk under the houses at night. I want you to sit with that for a second, because this isn't a story about some far-off jungle nobody lives in. This is daily life for real families on a handful of islands in Indonesia, and the animal they share their homes with happens to be the largest lizard on the planet. Let's start with the size of the problem, because the numbers are worse than most people assume. Fewer than 4,000 Komodo dragons exist anywhere on Earth, all of them packed onto a small cluster of islands: Komodo, Rinca, Flores, and a couple of smaller ones nearby. In 2007, an 8-year-old boy named Mansour stepped behind some bushes to relieve himself during a break from a soccer game. A dragon took him by the waist and threw him side to side. His uncle, a fisherman working nearby, ran over and threw rocks until the animal let go. Mansour died from blood loss half an hour later. It was the first fatal attack in 33 years, and it wasn't the last. In 2009, a 31-year-old fruit picker named Muhammad Anwar fell out of a sugar apple tree straight into 2 dragons that had been waiting underneath. He didn't survive the trip to the hospital on the next island. A few years before that, a park ranger walked into his own hut and found a dragon already inside, waiting. He survived, but not without serious damage to his hands. These aren't isolated horror stories either. In late 2020, a photo went viral online showing a Komodo dragon standing its ground in front of a construction truck at a development site on Rinca Island, refusing to move. The image spread everywhere, picked up hundreds of thousands of likes, and turned into a hashtag people used to argue about whether new hotels and roads belonged anywhere near dragon territory at all. That single photo tells you something important. Dragons don't only wander into villages by accident. People are also building further and further into the only land these animals have left. And eventually, the two problems meet in the middle. Claudio Cioffi, a geneticist at the University of Florence who has spent years studying this species, put it plainly. When these animals are hungry, the smell of drying fish or cooking meat pulls them straight toward a village. And the more often that happens, the more normal it becomes to them. A hungry dragon can smell blood from 3 miles away. Once it learns that a village means food, it stops being cautious around people, and that's the moment things turn dangerous. I find something genuinely unfair about this whole situation. The dragons aren't doing anything wrong by their own logic. Their natural food, mostly deer, is getting harder to find as habitats shrink, and poaching continues quietly in the background. A predator doesn't sit around debating morality when its stomach is empty. It goes wherever the easiest meal is. And right now, that's often a goat pen or a chicken coop a few hundred feet from a family's front door. I don't think you can call that malicious. I think you can call it exactly what happens whenever people and large predators are forced to share too little land. So, why don't people just leave? That's the question everyone asks first, and it's the wrong question, because it assumes leaving is simple. It isn't. Komodo National Park went from under 1,000 visitors a year in 1982 to more than 300,000 by 2023. That tourism money runs through every part of these villages, from boat rentals to guest houses to the guides who walk tourists out to see the dragons up close. On top of that, there's a piece of local folklore that's been passed down for generations about a man who married a dragon that had taken the form of a woman, and how their twins were separated at birth, a human son and a lizard daughter. People here don't just tolerate these animals. Some of them genuinely call the dragons their cousins. Around 83% of residents say they're willing to keep living alongside them, despite everything I just told you. That's not naivety. That's just what happens when an animal becomes part of who you are, not only what threatens you. Since staying is the only real option, people have found their own ways to cope, and honestly, some of those ways are hard to hear. In certain villages, families deliberately leave goats or chickens out in the open, not because they forgot to lock the pen, but because they'd rather lose an animal than lose a person. It's a trade nobody wants to make, and it tells you exactly how much fear is baked into everyday life here. Survey data backs this up too. Over 90% of residents in these areas say they're afraid a dragon could show up in their village at any time. About 1 in 10 admit they've grabbed a dragon by its tail to drag it away from danger. Think about that for a moment, grabbing the tail of an animal with serrated teeth and bacteria-loaded saliva, because throwing rocks and hoping for the best is sometimes the only tool available. This is where the idea comes in that everyone's been talking about. What if you didn't fight the dragon directly at all? What if you put something even less pleasant to deal with in its way? The porcupine enters the picture right about here. Not far from Komodo territory, on islands like Java and parts of Sumatra, porcupines already live in underground burrows, almost identical to the ones dragons use. A porcupine doesn't run from a threat. It turns its back, raises a wall of barbed quills, and waits. Predators across the world, including big cats in Africa, learn after one encounter that this isn't worth trying again. The quills don't just poke. They have tiny barbs, like a fish hook. So once one goes into flesh, movement drives it deeper instead of pulling it free. A Komodo dragon hunts by biting first, which puts its face directly in the line of fire. Get a mouthful of quills around the snout and eyes, and you're looking at infection, internal damage, sometimes death. There are documented cases of large predators dying from exactly this kind of encounter. It's not a myth. It's basic biology doing what it's always done. On paper, this sounds almost too clean. Bring in an animal that's already native to the region, let it claim the same burrows dragons want, and watch the dragons learn to stay away. No importing some foreign species, no chemicals, no traps. Just one animal making life uncomfortable enough for another that it changes its behavior. But I want to be honest with you here, because this is where the idea runs into real problems, and I don't think enough people talk about them. Start with the fact that porcupines haven't spread to these islands on their own, and there's a reason for that. Water separates them. Animals don't swim across open ocean just because there's better real estate on the other side. Getting porcupines there means people physically moving them, which is a real practice called conservation translocation, but it's slow, expensive, and it doesn't always work. A handful of animals dropped into unfamiliar territory can die out within a few seasons if the conditions aren't right. Then there's the part that actually worries me most. Burrows are limited. If porcupines take over most of them, Komodo dragons don't just vanish. They go looking for new shelter. And new shelter might mean digging closer to the very villages this whole plan was supposed to protect. You could end up making the exact problem worse while trying to fix it. That's not a hypothetical. It's the same pattern conservationists have watched play out again and again whenever one species gets pushed hard by another in a tight space. On top of that, porcupines aren't harmless guests either. In Pakistan, they're already considered agricultural pests because they tear through crops and orchards. Bring enough of them into a farming community, and you might trade one danger for a slower, quieter one that eats away at people's food supply instead of their safety. One detail gets skipped over the most. Komodo dragons aren't stupid animals. If they get hurt by the same threat over and over in the same spot, they adjust. They might start hunting at night instead of during the day, or they might simply avoid whole sections of forest. That's not the porcupines losing. That's the dragons adapting, the same way any intelligent predator does when its environment stops cooperating. So where does that leave everyone? Honestly, I think the boring answer is also the true one. Locked pens for livestock, sealed trash instead of open piles that smell like a dinner bell, physical fences that make the effort not worth it for a hungry dragon. None of that is exciting, none of it makes for a dramatic headline, but it's the difference between managing a real, ongoing risk and pretending a single clever trick can erase it. The porcupine idea isn't nonsense. It's a genuinely interesting piece of biology, and it might even help in specific, small, carefully managed situations. What it isn't is a fix you flip on and walk away from. This is a protected species living directly among people who've built parts of their culture, their income, and even their family stories around it. There's no clean solution here, only trade-offs, and I think that's worth admitting honestly, instead of promising a shortcut that doesn't exist. Every real fix on the table, from secure pens to sealed trash to simple fencing, is slow and unglamorous. Nobody makes a viral video out of a well-built goat pen, but a goat pen has never once cost a family their child's hand, and that's worth more than any clever trick involving a spiky rodent. If you were living in one of these villages, would you trust a porcupine to keep your family safe, or would you rather deal with a problem that has no easy ending? Let me know what you actually think.